18. Mom woke me up at 6:50. Sleep through your alarm? She asked. I squinted. It was still dark in my room. I'm fine, I said. You sure? Yeah, I said, and pulled myself out of bed. I was at school just 32 minutes later. I didn't look my best, but I'd long ago given up trying to impress the student body of White River High School. Daisy was sitting alone on the front steps. You look sleepy, she said as I walked up. It was cloudy, the kind of day where the sun is a supposition.
Long night.
How are you? Great, except I haven't seen nearly enough of my best friend lately. You want to hang out later? Applebee's? Sure, I said. Also, my mom had to borrow my car, so can we just go together? I made it through lunch, through the standard post-lunch encounter with Mom worrying over my tired eyes, through history and statistics. In each room the soul-sucking fluorescent light coated everything in a film of sickness, and the day droned on until the final bell released me at last. I made it to Harold, sat down in the driver's seat, and waited for Daisy. I hadn't been sleeping much. Hadn't been thinking straight. That sanitizer is basically pure alcohol, you can't keep drinking that.
Should probably call Dr. Singh, but then you'll have to talk to her answering service and tell a stranger that you're crazy.
Can't bear the thought of Dr. Singh calling back, voice tinged with sympathy, asking whether I'm taking the medication every day. Doesn't work anyway. Nothing does. 3 different medications and 5 years of cognitive behavioral therapy later, and here we are. I startled awake at the sound of Daisy opening the passenger door. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. I turned the car on. Felt my spine straightening. I reversed out of the parking spot and then waited in line to leave campus. You barely even changed my name, I said. My voice felt squeaky, but I was finding it. Huh? Ayala, Aza. Beginning of the alphabet to the end and back. Gave her compulsions. Gave her my personality. Anyone reading it would know how you really feel about me. Michael. Davis. Everyone at school, probably. Aza, Daisy said. My real name sounded wrong in her voice. You're not. Oh, fuck off. I've been writing them since I was 11, and you've never read a single one. You never asked. First, I did ask. A bunch of times. And then I got tired of you saying you'd read them and never doing it. And second, I shouldn't have to ask. You could take 3 seconds away from your non-stop fucking contemplation of yourself to think about other people's interests. Look, I came up with Ayala in like 7th grade. And it was a dick move, but she's her own character now. She's not you, okay? We were still inching our way through the student parking lot. I mean, I love you, and it's not your fault, but your anxiety does kind of invite disasters. At last I pulled off campus and headed north up Meridian toward the highway. She kept talking, of course. She always did. I'm sorry, okay? I should have let Ayala die years ago. But yeah, you're right, it is kind of a way of coping with. I mean, Holmesy, you're exhausting. Yeah, all our friendship has gotten you in the last couple months is $50,000 and a boyfriend. You're right, I'm a terrible person. What did you call me in that story? Useless. I'm useless. Ozza, she's not you. But you are. Extremely self-centered. Like, I know you have the mental problems and whatever, but they do make you. You know. I don't know, actually. They make me what? Michael said once that you're like mustard. Great in small quantities, but then a lot of you is. A lot. I didn't say anything. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said that. We were stopped at a red light, and when it turned green I was somewhat ungentle with Harold's accelerator. I could feel the heat in my cheeks, but couldn't tell if I was about to start crying or screaming. Daisy kept going. But you know what I mean. Like, what are my parents' names? I didn't answer. I didn't know the answer. I just took a long breath, trying to push my heartbeat down into my chest. I didn't need Daisy to point out what a shit show I was. I knew. What are their jobs? When was the last time you were at my apartment? 5 years ago? We're supposed to be best friends, Holmesy, and you don't even know if I have any fucking pets. You have no idea what it's like for me, and you're so, like, pathologically uncurious that you don't even know what you don't know. You have a cat, I whispered. You just have no fucking clue. It's all so fucking easy for you. I mean, you think you and your mom are poor or whatever, but you got braces. You got a car and a laptop and all that shit, and you think it's natural. You think it's just normal to have a house with your own room and a mom who helps you with your homework. You don't think you're privileged, but you have everything. You don't know what it's like for me, and you don't ask. I share a room with my annoying 8-year-old sister whose name you don't know, and then you judge me for buying a car instead of saving it all for college, but you don't know. You want me to be some selfless, proper heroine who's too good for money, but that's bullshit, Holmesy. Being poor doesn't purify you or whatever the fuck. It just sucks. You don't know my life. You haven't taken the time to find out, and you don't get to judge me. Her name is Elena, I said quietly. You think it's hard for you, and I'm sure it is from inside your head, but you can't get it, because your privileges are just oxygen to you. I thought it would make us the same. I've always been trying to keep up with you, trying to type as fast on my phone as you can on your laptop, and I thought it would make us closer, but it just made me feel like you're spoiled, kinda. Like, you've had this all along, and you can't even know how much easier it makes everything, because you don't ever think about anybody else's life. I felt like I might throw up. We merged onto the highway. My head was careening. I hated myself, hated her, thought she was right and wrong, thought I deserved it and didn't. You think it's easy for me? I don't mean. I turned to her. Stop talking. Jesus Christ, you haven't shut up in 10 years. I'm sorry it's not fun hanging out with me because I'm stuck in my head so much, but imagine being actually stuck inside my head with no way out, with no way to ever take a break from it, because that's my life. To use Michael's clever little analogy, imagine eating nothing but mustard, being stuck with mustard all the time, and if you hate me so much then stop asking me to. HOLMESY. She shouted, but too late. I looked up only in time to see that I'd kept accelerating while the traffic had slowed. I couldn't even get my foot to the brake before we slammed into the SUV in front of us. A moment later, something slammed into us from behind. Tires screeching. Honking. Another crash, this one smaller. Then silence. I was trying to catch my breath, but I couldn't, because every breath hurt. I swore, but it just came out as a HHHHGGG. I reached for the door only to realize my seatbelt was still on. I looked over at Daisy, who was looking back at me. "Are you okay?" she shouted. I realized I was groaning with each exhalation. My ears were ringing. "Yeah," I said. "You?" The pain made me feel dizzy. Darkness encroached at the edge of my vision. "I think so," she said. The world narrowed into a tunnel as I struggled for breath. "Stay in the car, Holmesy. You're hurt. Do you have your phone? We gotta call 911. The phone. I unbuckled my seatbelt and pushed my door open. I tried to stand, but the pain brought me back into Harold's seat. Fuck. Harold. A woman wearing a business suit knelt down to my eye level. She told me not to move, but I had to. I lifted myself up, and the pain blinded me for a minute, but then the black dots scattered so I could see the damage. Harold's trunk was as crumpled as his hood. He looked like a seismograph reading, except for the passenger compartment, which was perfectly intact. He never failed me, not even when I failed him. I leaned on Harold's side as I staggered back to the trunk. I tried to lift the trunk gate, but it was crushed. I started pounding on the trunk with my hands, screaming with every breath, "Fuck, oh God, oh God, oh God. He's totaled. He's totaled." "You're kidding me," Daisy said as she walked to the back of Harold. "You're upset about the goddamned car?" "It's a car, Holmesy. We almost died, and you're worried about your car?" I pounded on the trunk again, until Harold's license plate slid off, but I couldn't get it open. "Are you crying about the car?" I could see the latch. I just couldn't get it pried open, and whenever I tried to lift, the pain in my ribs made my vision cloud up, but I finally wrested the trunk open enough to reach my arm inside. I fumbled around until I found my dad's phone. The screen was shattered. I held the power button to turn it on, but beneath the branches of broken glass, the screen only glowed a cloudy gray. I pulled myself back to the driver's side door and slumped into Harold's seat, my forehead on the steering wheel. I knew the pictures were backed up, that nothing had really been lost. But it was his phone, you know? He'd held it, tucked into it. Taken my picture with it. I ran my thumb across the shattered glass and cried until I felt a hand on my shoulder. "My name's Franklin. You've been in a car accident. I'm a firefighter. Try not to move. An ambulance is on its way. What's your name?" "Azza. I'm not hurt. Just hang tight for me, Azza. Do you know what day it is?" "It's my dad's phone," I said. "This is his phone, and..." "Is this his car? Are you worried he'll be upset?" "Azza, I've been doing this for a long time, and I can promise, your dad's not mad at you. He's relieved you're okay." I felt like I was getting ripped apart from the inside, the supernova of my selves simultaneously exploding and collapsing. It hurt to cry, but I hadn't cried in so long, and I didn't really want to stop. "Where are you having pain?" he asked. I pointed toward the right side of my rib cage. A woman approached, and they began a conversation about whether I'd need a backboard. I tried to say that I felt dizzy and then felt myself falling, even though there was really nowhere to fall. I woke up staring at the ceiling of an ambulance, strapped to a backboard, a man holding an oxygen mask over my face, the sirens distant, my ears still ringing. then falling again, down and then on a hospital bed in a hallway, Mom over me, makeup dripping from her red eyes. My baby, oh Lord. Baby, are you all right? I'm fine, I said. I think I just cracked a rib or something. Dad's phone is broken. It's okay. We have everything backed up. They called me and told me you were hurt, but they didn't tell me if you were. She said, and then started crying. She sort of collapsed into Daisy, which is when I noticed Daisy was there, a red welt on her collarbone. I turned away from them and looked up at the bright fluorescent light above my bed, feeling the hot tears on my face, and finally my mom said, I can't lose you, too. A woman came in and took me away to get a CT scan, and I was sort of relieved to be away from both my mom and Daisy for a while, not to feel the swirl of fear and guilt over being such a failure as a daughter and a friend. Car accident? The woman asked as she pushed me past the word kindness painted in calligraphy on the wall. Yeah, I said. Those seatbelts will hurt ya while saving your life, she said. Yeah. Am I gonna need antibiotics? I'm not your doctor. She'll be in after we get the test. They put something in my IV that made me feel like I was pissing my pants, then ran me through the cylinder of the CT machine, and eventually returned me to the shivering nerves of my mother. I couldn't shake the crack in her voice when she said she couldn't lose me, too. I felt her nerves as she paced around the room, texting with my aunt and uncle in Texas, pressing long breaths through pursed lips, dabbing at her eye makeup with a tissue. Daisy didn't say much, for once. It's okay if you want to go home, I said to her at one point. Do you want me to go home? She asked. Up to you, I said. Seriously. I'll stay, she answered, and sat quietly, her eyes glancing from me to my mom and back again. 19. Good news and bad news, announced a woman in navy blue scrubs upon entering the room. Bad news, you have a lacerated liver. Good news, it's a mild laceration. We'll watch you closely for a couple days, so we can make sure your bleeding doesn't increase, and you'll be sore for several weeks, but I'm ordering you pain medication now so you'll be comfortable. Questions. She's going to be okay? My mom asked. Yes. If the bleeding worsens, surgery will be necessary, but based on the radiologist report, I think that's very unlikely. As liver lacerations go, this is about as good as they get. Your daughter is really quite lucky, in the scheme of things. She's going to be okay, my mom said again. As I said, we'll keep a close eye on her for a couple days, and then she'll have about a week of bed rest. Within 6 or so weeks, she should be her old self. My mother dissolved into tears of gratitude as I turned over that phrase, her old self. Do I need antibiotics? I asked. You shouldn't. If we had to do surgery, you would, but as of now, no. A shiver of relief rolled through me. No antibiotics. No increased risk of C. diff. Just needed to get the hell out of here, then. The doctor asked me about my medications, and I told her. She made some notes in the chart and then said, someone will be by shortly to take you upstairs, and we'll get you something for the pain before that. Wait, I said. What do you mean upstairs? As I said, you'll need to spend a couple nights here so that you can. Wait, no. I can't stay in the hospital. Baby, my mom said. You have to. No, I really can't. This is, like, the one place I absolutely cannot stay tonight. Please. Just let us go home. That would be inadvisable. Oh no. Listen, it's okay. Most people admitted to the hospital go home healthier than they left it. Almost everyone, really. C. diff infections are only common in post-surgical patients. You won't even be on antibiotics. Oh no 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 no. Of all the places to end up in the tightening gyre, here we were, on the 4th floor of a hospital in Carmel, Indiana. Daisy left once I'd gotten upstairs, but Mom stayed, lying on her side in the reclining chair next to my hospital bed, facing me. I could feel her breath on me that night as she slept, her lips parted, smudged eyes closed, the microbes from her lungs floating across my cheek. I couldn't roll over onto my side because even with the medication the pain was paralyzing, and when I turned my head, her breath just blew my hair across my face, so I lived with it. She stirred, her eyes locked to mine. You okay? Yeah, I said. Does it hurt? I nodded. You know Sekou Sundiata, in a poem, he said the most important part of the body ain't the heart or the lungs or the brain. The biggest, most important part of the body is the part that hurts. Mom put her hand on my wrist and fell back asleep. Even though I was pretty high on morphine or whatever, I couldn't sleep. I could hear beeping in the rooms next to mine, and it wasn't particularly dark, and well-meaning strangers kept showing up to pull blood out of my body and or check my blood pressure, and most of all, I knew that C. diff was invading my body, that it was floating in the air. On my phone, I paged through patients' stories of how they went into the hospital for a gallbladder surgery or a kidney stone, and they'd come out destroyed. The thing about C. diff is that it's inside of everyone. We all have it, lurking there, it's just that sometimes it grows out of control and takes over and begins attacking your insides. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes it happens because you ingest someone else's C. diff, which is slightly different from your own, and it starts mixing with yours, and boom. I felt these little jolts through my arms and legs as my brain whirred through thoughts, trying to figure out how to make this okay. My IV line beeping. Couldn't even say when I last changed the band-aid on my finger. The C. diff both inside me and around me. It could survive months outside a body, waiting for a new host. The combined weight of all large animals in the world, human, cow, penguin, shark, is around 1.1 billion tons. The combined weight of the Earth's bacteria is 400 billion tons. They overwhelm us. For some reason, I started hearing that song, Can't Stop Thinking About You, in my head. The more I thought about that song, the weirder it got. Like, the chorus, can't stop thinking about you, imagines that it is somehow sweet or romantic to be unable to turn your thoughts away from someone. But there's nothing romantic or pretty about a boy thinking about you the way you think about C. diff. Can't stop thinking. Trying to find something solid to hold on to in this rolling sea of thought. The spiral painting. Daisy hates you and she should. Davis's microbe-soaked tongue on your neck. Your mom's warm breaths. Hospital gown clinging to your back soaked with sweat. And in the way down deep, some me screaming, get me out of here, get me out of here, get me out, please, I'll do anything. But the thoughts just keep spinning, the tightening gyre, the jogger's mouth, the stupidity of Ayala, Azza, and Holmesy and all my irreconcilable selves, my self-absorption, the filth in my gut. Think about anything other than yourself, you disgusting narcissist. I took my phone and texted Daisy. I'm so sorry I haven't been a good friend. I can't stop thinking about it. She wrote back immediately, it's fine. How are you? Me. I do care about your life and I'm sorry I haven't shown it. Daisy. Holmesy, calm down, everything is fine, I'm sorry we fought, we'll make up, it will be fine. Me. I'm just really sorry. I can't think straight. Daisy. Stop apologizing. Are you on sweet pain meds? I didn't reply, but I couldn't stop thinking about Daisy, about Ayala, and most of all about the bugs inside and outside of me, and I knew I was being selfish by even making a big deal out of it, making other people's real C. diff infections about my hypothetical one. Reprehensible. Pinched my finger with my thumbnail to attest to this moment's reality, but can't escape myself. Can't kiss anyone, can't drive a car, can't function in the actual sensate populated world. How could I even fantasize about going to some school far away where you pay a fortune to live in dorms full of strangers, with communal bathrooms and cafeterias and no private spaces to be crazy in? I'd be stuck here for college, if I could ever get my thinking straightened enough to attend. I'd live in my house with Mom, and then afterward, too. I could never become a functioning grown-up like this, it was inconceivable that I'd ever have a career. In job interviews they'd ask me, "What's your greatest weakness?" And I'd explain that I'll probably spend a good portion of the workday terrorized by thoughts I'm forced to think, possessed by a nameless and formless demon, so if that's going to be an issue, you might not want to hire me. Thoughts are just a different kind of bacteria, colonizing you. I thought about the gut-brain information axis. Maybe you're already gone. The prisoners run the jail now. Not a person so much as a swarm. Not a bee, but the hive. I couldn't stand my mother's breath on my face. My palms were sweating. I felt myself slipping away. You know how to deal with this. Can you turn over? I whispered, but she responded only with breath. You just need to stand up. I picked up my phone to text Daisy, but now the letters blurred out on the screen, and the full panic gripped me. See the hand sanitizer mounted on the wall near the door. It's the only way that's stupid. If it worked, alcoholics would be the healthiest people in the world. You're just going to sanitize your hands and your mouth. Please fucking think about something else. Stand up. I hate being stuck inside you. You are me. I am not. You are we. I am not. You want to feel better. You know how to feel better. It'll just make me barf. You'll be clean. You can be sure. I can never be sure. Stand up. Not even a person, just a deeply flawed line of reasoning. You want to stand up. The doctor said stay in bed, and the last thing needed is a surgery. You will get up and wheel your IV cart. Let me up out of this. Wheel your IV cart to the front of the room, please, and you will pump the hand sanitizer foam into your hands, clean them carefully, and then you will pump more foam into your hands and you will put that foam in your mouth, swish it around your filthy teeth and gums. But that stuff has alcohol in it that my damaged liver will have to process. Do you want to die of C. diff? No, but this is not rational. Then get up and wheel your IV cart to the container of hand sanitizer mounted on the goddamned wall, you idiot. Please let me go. I'll do anything. I'll stand down. You can have this body. I don't want it anymore. You will stand up. I will not. I am my way, not my will. You will stand up. Please. You will go to the hand sanitizer. Cogito, ergo non sum. Sweating. You already have it. Nothing hurts like this. You've already got it. Stop, please God, stop. You'll never be free of this. You'll never be free of this. You'll never get yourself back. You'll never get yourself back. Do you want to die of this? Do you want to die of this? Because you will, you will, you will, you will, you will, you will. I pulled myself to standing. For a moment, I thought I might faint as the pain blazed through me. I grabbed hold of the IV pole and took a few shuffling steps. I heard my mom stirring. I didn't care. Pressed the dispenser, rubbed the foam all through my hands. Pressed it again, and shoved a scoop of it into my mouth. Azza, what are you doing? My mom asked. I was so fucking embarrassed, but I did it again, because I had to. Ozza, stop it. I heard my mom getting up, and knew my window was closing, so I took a third shot of the foam and stuffed it into my mouth, gagging. A spasm of nausea lurched through me, and I vomited, the pain in my ribs blinding, as Mom grabbed me by the arm. There was yellow bile all over my pale blue hospital gown. A voice came from inside a speaker somewhere behind me. This is Nurse Wallace. My daughter is vomiting. I think she drank hand sanitizer. I knew how disgusting I was. I knew. I knew now for sure. I wasn't possessed by a demon. I was the demon. 20. The next morning, you wake up in a hospital bed, staring up at ceiling tiles. Gingerly, carefully, you assess your own consciousness for a moment. You wonder, is it over? The hospital food didn't look so good, so I made you some breakfast, your mother says. Cheerios. You look down at your body, rendered mostly formless by a bleached white blanket. You say, Cheerios aren't something you make, and your mom laughs. At the end of your bed you see a huge bouquet of flowers resting on a table, ostentatiously huge, complete with a crystal vase. From Davis, your mother says. Nearer to you, hovering above your formless body, a tray of food. You swallow. You look at the Cheerios, bobbing in milk. Your body hurts. A thought crosses your mind. God only knows what you inhaled while you were asleep. It's not over. You lie there, not even thinking really, except to try to consider how to describe the hurt, as if finding the language for it might bring it up out of you. If you can make something real, if you can see it and smell it and touch it, then you can kill it. You think, it's like a brain fire. Like a rodent gnawing at you from the inside. A knife in your gut. A spiral. Whirlpool. Black hole. The words used to describe it, despair, fear, anxiety, obsession, do so little to communicate it. Maybe we invented metaphor as a response to pain. Maybe we needed to give shape to the opaque, deep-down pain that evades both sense and senses. For a moment, you think you're better. You've just had a successful train of thought, with an engine and a caboose and everything. Your thoughts. Authored by you. And then you feel a wave of nausea, a fist clenching from within your rib cage, cold sweat hot forehead, you've got it, it's already inside of you, crowding out everything else, taking you over, and it's going to kill you and eat its way out of you. And then in a small voice, half strangled by the ineffable horror, you barely squeeze out the words you need to say. I'm in trouble, Mom. Big trouble. 21. The arc of the story goes like this. Having descended into proper madness, I begin to make the connections that crack open the long-dormant case of Russell Pickett's disappearance. My dogged obsessiveness leads me to ignore all manner of threats, and the risk to the fortune Daisy and I have stumbled into. I focus only on the mystery, and embrace the belief that solving it is the ultimate good, that declarative sentences are inherently better than interrogative ones, and in finding the answer despite my madness, I simultaneously find a way to live with the madness. I become a great detective, not in spite of my brain circuitry, but because of it. I'm not sure who I walk into the sunset with in the proper story, Davis or Daisy, but I walk into it. You see me backlit, an eclipse silhouetted by the 8-minute-old light of our home star, holding hands with somebody. And along the way, I realize that I have agency over myself, that my thoughts are, as Dr. Singh liked to say, only thoughts. I realize that my life is a story that I'm telling, and I'm free and empowered and the captain of my consciousness, and yeah, no. That's not how it went down. I did not become dogged or declarative, nor did I walk off into the sunset. In fact, for a while there, I saw hardly any natural light at all. What happened was relentlessly and excruciatingly dull. I lay in a hospital bed and hurt. My ribs hurt, my brain hurt, my thoughts hurt, and they did not let me go home for 8 days. At first, they figured me for an alcoholic, that I'd gone for the hand sanitizer because I was so desperate for a drink. The truth was so much weirder and less rational that nobody really seemed to buy it until they contacted Dr. Singh. When she arrived at the hospital, she pulled a chair up to the edge of my bed. "Two things happened," she said. "First, you're not taking your medication as prescribed." I told her I'd taken it almost every day, which felt true, but wasn't. I felt like it was making me worse. I eventually confessed. "Aza, you're an intelligent young woman. Surely you don't think drinking hand sanitizer while hospitalized for a lacerated liver marks forward progress in your mental health journey?" I just stared at her. As I'm sure they explained to you, drinking hand sanitizer is dangerous, not only because of the alcohol, but because it contains chemicals that when ingested can kill you. So we're not moving forward with the idea that the medicine you stopped taking was making you worse. She said it all so forcefully that I just nodded. "And the second thing that happened is that you experienced in the accident a serious trauma, and this would be challenging for anyone." I kept staring. "We need to get you on a different medication, one that works better for you, that you can tolerate, and that you'll take." "None of them work." "None of them have worked yet," she corrected. Dr. Singh came by each morning, and then in the afternoon another doctor visited to assess my liver situation. Both were a relief if for no other reason than my omnipresent mother was forced to leave the room briefly. On the last day, Dr. Singh sat down next to the side of my bed and placed a hand on my shoulder. She'd never touched me before. "I recognize that a hospital setting has probably not been great for your anxiety." "Yeah," I said. "Do you feel you are a threat to yourself?" "No," I said. "I'm just really scared and having a lot of invasives." "Did you consume hand sanitizer yesterday?" "No." "I'm not here to judge you, Aza. But I can only help if you're being honest." "I am being honest. I haven't. For one thing, they'd taken the wall-mounted sanitizer station out of my room." "Have you thought about it?" "Yeah." "You don't have to be afraid of that thought. Thought is not action." "I can't stop thinking about getting C. diff. I just want to be sure that I'm not." "Drinking hand sanitizer won't help." "But what will help?" "Time. Treatment. Taking your meds." I feel like a noose is tightening around me and I want out, but struggling only cinches the knot. The spiral just keeps tightening, you know? She looked me dead in the eye. I thought she might cry or something, the way she was looking at me. "Aza, you're going to survive this." Even after they let me go home, Dr. Singh still came to my house twice a week to check on my progress. I had switched to a different medication, which Mom made sure I took every morning, and I wasn't allowed to get up except to go to the bathroom lest I re-lacerate my liver. I was out of school for 2 weeks. 14 days of my life reduced to one sentence, because I can't describe anything that happened during those days. It hurt, all the time, in a way language could not touch. It was boring. It was predictable.
Like walking a maze you know has no solution.
It's easy enough to say what it was like, but impossible to say what it was. Daisy and Davis both tried to visit, but I wanted to be alone, in bed. I didn't read or watch TV, neither could adequately distract me. I just lay there, almost catatonic, as my mother hovered, perpetually near, breaking the silence every few minutes with a question phrased as a statement. Each day is a little better? You're feeling okay? You're improving? The inquisition of declarations. I didn't even turn on my phone for a while, a decision endorsed by Dr. Singh. When I finally did power it up, I felt an insoluble fear. I both wanted to find a lot of text messages and didn't. Turns out I had over 30 messages, not just from Daisy and Davis, although they had written, but also from Michael and other friends, and even some teachers. I returned to school on a Monday morning in early December. I wasn't sure if the new medication was working, but I also wasn't wondering whether to take it. I felt ready, like I had returned to the world, not my old self, but myself nonetheless. Mom drove me to school. Harold had been totaled, and anyway, I was too scared of driving. Excited or nervous? Mom asked me. She drove with both hands on the steering wheel, 10 and 2 o'clock. Nervous, I said. Your teachers, your friends, they all understand, Azza. They just want you well and will support you 100%, and if they don't, I will crush them. I smiled a little. Everyone knows, is all. That I went crazy or whatever. Oh, sweetie, she said. You didn't go crazy. You've always been crazy. Now I laughed, and she reached over to squeeze my wrist. Daisy was waiting on the front steps. Mom stopped the car, and I got out, the weight of the backpack still tender against my ribs. It was a cold day, but the sun was bright even though it had just risen, and I kept blinking away the light. It had been a while since I'd spent much time outside. Daisy looked different. Her face brighter somehow. It took me a second to realize she'd gotten a haircut, a just under the chin bob that looked really good. Can I hug you without lacerating your liver? I like the new hairstyle, I said as we hugged. You're sweet, but we both know it's a disaster. Listen, I said. I'm really sorry. Me too, but we have forgiven each other and now we will live happily ever after. Seriously, though, I said. I feel terrible about. I do, too, she said. You gotta read my new story, man. It's a 15,000-word apology set on post-apocalyptic Jeddah. What I want to say to you, Holmesy, is that yes, you are exhausting, and yes, being your friend is work. But you are also the most fascinating person I have ever known, and you are not like mustard. You are like pizza, which is the highest compliment I can pay a person. I'm just really sorry, Daisy, for not being. Jesus Christ, Holmesy, you can sure hold a grudge against yourself. You are my favorite person. I want to be buried next to you. We'll have a shared tombstone. It'll read, Holmesy and Daisy. They did everything together, except the nasty. Anyway, how are you? I shrugged. Want me to keep talking? I nodded. You know how sometimes people will say, like, oh, she really loves the sound of her voice? I do seriously love the sound of my voice. I've got a voice for radio. She turned and started walking up the stairs to get in line for the metal detectors. So I know what you're wondering. Daisy, are you still dating Michael? Where's your car?
What happened to your hair?
The answers are no, sold, and a cut became necessary after Elena intentionally put 3 pieces of chewed bubblegum in my hair while I was sleeping. It's been a long 2 weeks, Holmesy. Should I elaborate? I nodded. With pleasure, she answered as we cleared the metal detectors. So with Michael it really boiled down to my need to be young and wild and free, like, I had this near-death experience and then thought, do I really want to waste my youth in a capital R relationship? And so I was, like, let's see other people, and he was, like, no, and I was, like, please, and he was, like, I want to be in a monogamous relationship, and I was, like, I just don't want the weight of this, like, thing dominating my life, and he was, like, I'm not a thing, and then we broke up. I think technically he dumped me in the end, but it was one of those things where you'd need, like, a 3-judge panel to determine who was technically at fault. Anyway, then with the car, it turns out that cars are expensive to own and also it turns out that they can hurt you, so I got a refund because I had it less than 60 days, and now I'm just going to Uber everywhere for the rest of my life, because then it's kind of like I have every car, and also as a rich person I deserve to be chauffeured. Should I keep going? We'd reached my locker now, and I was surprised to find that I remembered the combination. There were so many human bodies around me. I kind of couldn't believe it. I pulled my locker open. I hadn't done any homework. I was behind on everything. The hallway was so loud, so crowded. Yeah, I said. No problem. I can do this all day. This is another reason we're destined to be together, you're so good at not talking. So, with Elena, she put gum in my hair on purpose while I was sleeping, and the next morning I was, like, why is there chewed gum in my hair? And she was, like, haha. I was, like, Elena, you have no understanding of humor. It isn't funny just to make someone's life worse. Like, if I broke your leg, would that be funny? And she was, like, haha. So I got this fancy haircut, and believe you me, I paid for it out of Elena's college fund. My parents made me set up a college fund for Elena, by the way. In other news, the whole Michael thing has made our lunch table a little awkward, so we're going to have a 2-person picnic outside. I know it's slightly cold, but trust me, sitting next to Michael in the cafeteria is far colder. Are you so ready to go to biology right now and just absolutely murder it? Like, in 47 minutes, the dead and bloodless carcass of honors biology will be laid before your feet. God, a lot happened since you lost your mind. Is that rude to say? Actually, the problem is that I can't lose my mind, I said. It's inescapable. That is precisely how I feel about my virginity, Daisy said. Another reason Michael and I were doomed. He doesn't want to have sex unless he's in love, and yes, I know that virginity is a misogynistic and oppressive social construct, but I still want to lose it, and meanwhile I've got this boy hemming and hawing like we're in a Jane Austen novel. I wish boys didn't have all these feelings I have to manage like a fucking psychiatrist. Daisy walked me to the door of my classroom, opened it, and then walked me to my desk. I sat down. You know I love you, right? I nodded. My whole life I thought I was the star of an overly earnest romance movie, and it turns out I was in a goddamned buddy comedy all along. I gotta go to calc. Good to see you, Holmesy. Daisy had brought leftover pizza for our picnic, and we sat underneath our school's one big oak tree, halfway to the football field. It was frigid, and both of us were bundled into our winter coats, hoods up, my jeans stiff on the frozen ground. I didn't have gloves, so I tucked my fists into the coat. It was no weather for a picnic. I've been thinking a lot about Pickett, Daisy said. Yeah? Yeah, just, while you were gone, I kept thinking about how weird it is to leave your kids like that, without even saying goodbye. I almost feel bad for him, to be honest. Like, what has to be wrong with him that he doesn't at least buy a burner phone somewhere and text his kids and tell them he's okay? I felt worse for the 13-year-old who wakes up every morning thinking that maybe today is the day. And then he plays video games every night to distract from the dull ache of knowing your father doesn't trust or love you enough to be in contact. Your father who privileged a tuatara over you in his estate plans. I feel worse for Noah than for Pickett, I said. You've always empathized with that kid, she said. Even when you can't with your best friend. I shot her a glance and she laughed it off, but I knew she wasn't kidding. So, what do your parents do? I asked. Daisy laughed again. My dad works at the State Museum. He's a security guard there. He likes it, because he's really into Indiana history, but mostly he just makes sure nobody touches the mastodon bones or whatever. My mom works at a dry cleaners in Broad Ripple. Have you told them about the money yet? Yeah. That's how Elena got that college fund. They made me put 10 grand in it. My dad was, like, Elena would do the same for you if she came into some money, like hell she would. They weren't mad? That I came home one day with $50,000? No, Holmesy, they weren't mad. Inside the arm of my coat, I could feel something seeping from my middle fingertip. I'd have to change the Band-Aid before history, have to go through the whole annoying ritual of it. But for now, I liked being next to Daisy. I liked watching my warm breath in the cold. How's Davis? She asked. Haven't talked to him, I said. I haven't talked to anyone. So it was pretty bad. Yeah, I said. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's not your fault. Did you? Do you think about killing yourself? I thought about not wanting to be that way anymore. Are you still? I don't know. I let out a long, slow breath, and watched the steam of it disappear in the winter air. I think maybe I'm like the White River. Non-navigable. But that's not the point of the story, Holmesy. The point of the story is they built the city anyway, you know? You work with what you have. They had this shit river, and they managed to build an okay city around it. Not a great city, maybe. But not bad. You're not the river. You're the city. So, I'm not bad? Correct. You're a solid B+. If you can build a B+ city with C- geography, that's pretty great. I laughed. Beside me, Daisy lay down and motioned for me to lie next to her. We were looking up, our heads near the trunk of that lone oak tree, the sky smoke gray above us past our fogged breath, the leafless branches intersecting overhead. I don't know if I'd ever told Daisy about that, if she lay down at precisely that moment because she knew how much I loved seeing the sky cut up. I thought about how branches far from one another could still intersect in my line of vision, like how the stars of Cassiopeia were far from one another, but somehow near to me. I wish I understood it, she said. It's okay, I said. Nobody gets anybody else, not really. We're all stuck inside ourselves. You just, like, hate yourself? You hate being yourself? There's no self to hate. It's like, when I look into myself, there's no actual me, just a bunch of thoughts and behaviors and circumstances. And a lot of them just don't feel like they're mine. They're not things I want to think or do or whatever. And when I look for the, real me, I never find it. It's like those nesting dolls, you know? The ones that are hollow, and then when you open them up, there's a smaller doll inside, and you keep opening hollow dolls until eventually you get to the smallest one, and it's solid all the way through. But with me, I don't think there is one that's solid. They just keep getting smaller. That reminds me of a story my mom tells, Daisy said. What story? I could hear her teeth chattering when she talked, but neither of us wanted to stop looking up at the latticed sky. Okay, so there's this scientist, and he's giving a lecture to a huge audience about the history of the Earth, and he explains that the Earth was formed billions of years ago from a cloud of cosmic dust, and then for a while the Earth was very hot, but then it cooled enough for oceans to form. And single-celled life emerged in the oceans, and then over billions of years, life got more abundant and complex, until 250,000 or so years ago, humans evolved, and we started using more advanced tools, and then eventually built spaceships and everything. So he gives this whole presentation about the history of Earth and life on it, and then at the end, he asks if there are any questions. An old woman in the back raises her hand, and says, "That's all fine and good, Mr. Scientist, but the truth is, the Earth is a flat plane resting on the back of a giant turtle." The scientist decides to have a bit of fun with the woman and responds, "Well, but if that's so, what is the giant turtle standing upon?" And the woman says, "It is standing upon the shell of another giant turtle." And now the scientist is frustrated, and he says, "Well, then what is that turtle standing upon?" And the old woman says, "Sir, you don't understand. It's turtles all the way down." I laughed. It's turtles all the way down. It's turtles all the way fucking down, Holmesy. You're trying to find the turtle at the bottom of the pile, but that's not how it works. Because it's turtles all the way down, I said again, feeling something akin to a spiritual revelation. I stopped at Mom's classroom for the last few minutes of lunch. I closed the door behind me and sat down at a desk opposite her. I glanced up at the clock on the wall. 1:08. I had 6 minutes. I didn't want more. "Hey," I said. "First day back going well?" She blew her nose into a Kleenex. She had a cold, but she'd spent all her sick days on me being sick. "Yeah," I said. "So listen, Davis gave me some money. A lot of money. About $50,000. I haven't spent it or anything. I'm saving it for college." Her face tightened. "It was a gift," I said again. "When?" she asked. A couple months ago." "That's not a gift. A necklace is a gift. $50,000 is not a gift. If I were you, I'd return that money to Davis," she said. "You don't want to feel indebted to him." "But I'm not you," I said. "And I don't." After a second, she said, "That's true. You're not." I waited for her to say something more, to tell me why I was wrong to keep the money. At last, she said, "Your life is yours, Aza, but I think if you look at your mental health the last couple months, the money didn't cause that. I've been sick for a long time. Not like this. I need you to be well, Aza. I can't lose." "God, Mom, please stop saying that. I know you're not trying to make me feel pressure, but it feels like I'm hurting you, like I'm committing assault or something, and it makes me feel 10,000 times worse. I'm doing my best, but I can't stay sane for you, okay?" After a minute she said, "The day you came home after the accident, I carried you to the bathroom, and I carried you back to bed and tucked the covers up to your chin, and I realized that I'll probably never pick you up again. You're right. I keep saying I can't lose you, but I will. I am. And that's a hard thought. That's a hard thought. But you're right. You're not me. You make your own choices. And if you're saving it for your education, making responsible decisions, well, then, she never finished the sentence, because the bell beeped from on high. Okay, I said. Love you, Ozza. I love you, too, Mom. I wanted to say more, to find a way to express the magnetic poles of my love for my mother. Thank you, I'm sorry, thank you, I'm sorry. But I couldn't bring myself to, and anyway, the bell had rung. Before I could get to history, Michael intercepted me. Hey, how's it going? He asked. I'm okay, you? Daisy and I broke up. I heard. I'm kinda devastated. Sorry. And she isn't even upset about it, which just makes me feel pathetic. She thinks I should get over it, but everything reminds me of her, Holmesy, and seeing her ignore me, not show up to lunch, all that. Can you, talk to her for me? Right then, I spotted Daisy halfway down the crowded hallway, her head down. Daisy! I shouted. She kept walking, so I yelled again, louder. She looked up and picked her way toward us through the crowd. I pulled her and Michael together. Both of you can talk to me about each other, but you can't talk to each other about each other. And you're going to fix that, because it's annoying. Cool? Cool. I have to go to history. Daisy texted me during class. Thanks for that. We've decided to just be friends. Me. Cool. Her. But the kind of friends who kiss right after deciding to just be friends. Me. I'm sure this will work out perfectly. Her. Everything always does. Since I had my phone out, and we were watching a video in class anyway, I decided to text Davis. Sorry not to reply for so long. Hi. I miss you. He wrote back immediately. When can I see you? Me, tomorrow? Him, 7 at Applebee's? Me, sounds good. 22. I thought I'd be fine driving Mom's silver Toyota Camry to Applebee's that night, but I couldn't shake memories of the accident. It seemed surreal and miraculous to me that so many cars could drive past one another without colliding, and I felt certain that each set of headlights headed my way would inevitably veer into my path. Remembered the crunching sound of Harold's death, the silence that followed, the agony in my ribs. Thought about the biggest part being the part that hurts, about my dad's phone, gone forever. Tried to let myself have the thoughts, because to deny them was to just let them take over. It sort of worked, like everything else. I made it to Applebee's 15 minutes early. Davis was already there, and he hugged me in the entryway before we got seated. A thought appeared in my mind, undeniable as the sun in a clear sky. He's going to want to put his bacteria in your mouth. Hi, I said. I missed you, he said. After the nervous-making car trip, my brain was revving up. I told myself that having a thought was not dangerous, that thoughts aren't actions, that thoughts are just thoughts. Dr. Karen Singh liked to say that an unwanted thought was like a car driving past you when you're standing on the side of the road, and I told myself I didn't have to get into that car, that my moment of choice was not whether to have the thought, but whether to be carried away by it. And then I got in the car. I sat down in the booth and instead of sitting across from me, he sat next to me, his hip against mine. I talked to your mom a few times, he said. I think she's coming around to me. Who cares if he wants his bacteria in my mouth? Kissing is nice. Kissing feels good. I want to kiss him. But you don't want to get Campylobacter. I won't. You'll be sick for weeks. Might have to take antibiotics. Stop. Then you'll get C. diff. Or you'll get Epstein-Barr from the Campylobacter. Stop. That could paralyze you. All because you kissed him when you didn't even actually want to because it's fucking gross, inserting your tongue into someone else's mouth. Are you there? He asked. What? Yeah, I said. I asked how you're feeling. Good, I said. Honestly not good right now, but good in general. Why not good right now? Can you sit across from me? Yeah, of course. He got up and moved around to the opposite bench, which made me feel better. For a moment, anyway. I can't do this, I said. Can't do what? This, I said. I can't, Davis. I don't know if I'll ever be able to. Like, I know you're waiting for me to get better, and I really appreciate all your texts and everything. It's incredibly sweet, but, like, this is probably what better looks like for me. I like this you. No, you don't. You want to make out and sit on the same side of the table and do other normal couple things. Because of course you do. He didn't say anything for a minute. Maybe you just don't find me attractive? It's not that, I said. But maybe it is. It's not. It's not that I don't want to kiss you or that I don't like kissing or whatever. My brain says that kissing is one of a bunch of things that will, like, kill me. Like, actually kill me. But it's not even about dying, really, like, if I knew I was dying, and I kissed you goodbye, literally my last thought wouldn't be about the fact that I was dying. It would be about the 80 million microbes that we just exchanged. I know that when you just touched me, it didn't give me a disease, or it probably didn't. God, I can't even say that it definitely didn't because I'm so fucking scared of it. I can't even call it anything but it, you know? I just can't. I could tell I was hurting him. I could see it in the way he kept blinking. I could see that he didn't understand it, that he couldn't. I didn't blame him. It made no sense. I was a story riddled with plot holes. That sounds really scary, he said. I just nodded. Do you feel like you're getting better? Everyone wanted me to feed them that story, darkness to light, weakness to strength, broken to whole. I wanted it, too. Maybe, I said. Honestly, I feel really fragile. I feel like I've been taped back together. I know that feeling. How are you? I asked. He shrugged. How's Noah? I asked. Not good. Unpack that for me, I said. He just misses Dad. It's like knows two people, almost. There's the miniature dude bro who drinks bad vodka and is the king of his little gang of 8th grade pseudo-badasses. And then the kid who crawls into bed with me some nights and cries. It's almost like Noah thinks if he screws up enough, Dad will be forced to come out of hiding. He's heartbroken, I said. Yeah, well. Aren't we all? It's I don't really want to talk about my life, if that's okay. It occurred to me that Davis probably liked what infuriated Daisy, that I didn't ask too many questions. Everyone else was so relentlessly curious about the life of the billionaire boy, but I'd always been too stuck inside myself to interrogate him. Slowly, the conversation sputtered. We started talking to each other like people who used to be close, catching each other up on our lives rather than living them together. By the time he paid the bill, I knew that whatever we'd been, we weren't anymore. Still, once I was home and under the covers, I texted him. "You around?" "You can't do it the other way," he replied. "And I can't do it this way." "Me? Why?" "Him. It makes me feel like you only like me at a distance. I need to be liked close up." I kept typing and deleting, typing and deleting. I never ended up replying. The next day at school, I was walking across the cafeteria to our lunch table when I was intercepted by Daisy. "Holmesy, we have to talk privately." She sat me down at a mostly empty lunch table, a few seats away from some freshmen. "Did you break up with Michael again?" "No, of course not. The magic of being just friends is that you can't break up. I feel like I've unlocked the secret of the universe with this just friends thing. But no, we're going on an adventure." "We are?" "Do you feel like you've recovered your wits enough that you could, for instance, sneak underneath the city of Indianapolis to attend a guerrilla art show?" "A what?" "Okay, so remember how I had that idea for Michael to make those photographic montages of exonerated prisoners? Well, it was mostly his eye. Let's not get lost in the details, Holmesy. The point is he made it and submitted it to this super cool arts collective known city, and they are putting it in this one-night-only gallery show they're doing Friday night called Underground Art, where they turn part of the Pogues Run tunnel into an art gallery. Pogues Run was the tunnel that emptied into the White River that Pickett's company had been hired to expand, the work they'd never finished. Seemed an odd place for an art show. I don't really want to spend Friday night at an illegal art gallery. It's not illegal. They have permission. It's just super underground. Like, literally underground. I scrunched up my face. It's like the coolest thing ever to happen in Indianapolis, and my just friend has art in the show. Obviously don't feel obligated to be there, but do be there. I don't want to be a third wheel. I am going to be nervous and surrounded by people cooler than me, and I'd really like my best friend to be there. I opened the Ziploc bag containing my peanut butter and honey sandwich and took a bite. "You're thinking about it," she said, excitement in her voice. "I'm thinking about it," I allowed. And then, after I swallowed, I said, "All right, let's do it." "Yes. Yes. We will pick you up at 6:15 on Friday, it's going to be amazing." The way she smiled at me made it impossible not to smile back. In a quiet voice, not even sure she could hear me, I said, "I love you, Daisy. I know you say that to me all the time and I never say it, but I do. I love you." "Ah, fuck. Don't go all soft on me, Holmesy." Michael and Daisy showed up at my doorstep at 6:15 sharp. She was wearing a dress and tights combo dwarfed by her huge puffer coat, and Michael was wearing a silver gray suit that was slightly too big for him. I had on a long-sleeve t-shirt, jeans, and a coat. "I didn't know I was supposed to dress up for the sewer," I said sheepishly. "The art sewer." Daisy smiled. I wondered whether maybe I should change, but but she just grabbed me and said, "Holmesy, you look radiant. You look like yourself." I sat in one of the back seats in Michael's minivan, and as he drove south on Michigan Road, Daisy started playing one of our favorite songs, "You're the One." Michael was laughing as Daisy and I screamed the lyrics to each other. She sang lead, and I belted out the background voice that just repeated, "You're everything, everything, everything," and I felt like I was. You're both the fire and the water that extinguishes it. You're the narrator, the protagonist, and the sidekick. You're the storyteller and the story told. You are somebody's something, but you are also your you. As Daisy switched the song to a romantic ballad that she and Michael were singing, I started thinking about turtles all the way down. I was thinking that maybe the old lady and the scientist were both right.
The world is billions of years old, and life is a product of nucleotide mutation and everything.
But the world is also the stories we tell about it. Michael turned off Michigan at 10th Street, and we drove for a while until we reached a pool supply store with a flickering backlit sign saying Rosenthal Pools. The parking lot was already half full. Daisy stopped the music as Michael pulled into a spot. We got out and found ourselves surrounded by a weird mix of 20-something hipsters and middle-aged couples. Everyone but us seemed to know one another, and the three of us stood next to Michael's car for a long time in silence, just watching the scene, until a middle-aged woman in an all-black outfit walked over and said, "Are you here for the event?" "I'm, Michael Turner," Michael said. "I have a picture in the show." "Prisoner 101? Yeah. That's me. I'm Francis Oliver. I think Prisoner 101 is one of the strongest pieces in the gallery. And I'm the curator, so I should know. Come, let's head on down together. I would be fascinated to learn more about your process." Francis and Michael began walking across the parking lot, but every few seconds Francis would pause and say, "Oh, I must introduce you to." And we'd stop for a while to meet an artist or a collector or a funding partner. Slowly, he was swallowed by all the people who loved Prisoner 101 and wanted to talk with him about it, and after we stood behind him for a while, Daisy finally grabbed him by the hand and said, "We're gonna head down to the show. Enjoy this. I'm so proud of you." "I can come with," he said, turning away from a gaggle of art students from Heron, the art college in town. "No, have fun. You gotta meet all these people, so they'll buy your pictures." He smiled, kissed her, and returned to his crowd of fans. When Daisy and I reached the edge of the parking lot, we saw through the trees a flashlight waving back and forth in the air, so we wound our way down a little hill toward the light until the brush opened up into a wide concrete basin. A tiny stream of water, I could easily step over it, bubbled along its bottom. We walked toward the bearded man waving the flashlight, who introduced himself as Kip and handed us hard hats with lanterns and a flashlight. "Follow the tunnel in for 200 yards, then take your first left, and you'll be in the gallery." The light from my helmet followed the creek downstream. In the distance, I could see the start of the tunnel, a light-sucking square cut into a hillside. There was an overturned shopping cart just outside the start of the culvert, trapped against a moss-covered boulder. As we walked toward the tunnel's entrance, I looked up at the black silhouettes of leafless maple trees splitting up the sky. The creek ran along the left side of the Pogues Run tunnel. We walked on a slightly elevated concrete sidewalk to the right of the creek. The smell enveloped us immediately, sewage and the sickly sweet smell of rot. I thought my nose would get used to it, but it never did. A few steps in, we began to hear rodents scurrying along the creek bed. We could hear voices, too, echoey, unintelligible conversations that seemed to be coming from all sides of us. Our headlamps lit up the graffiti that lined the walls, spray-painted tags in bubble letters, but also stenciled images and messages. Daisy's light lingered on one image featuring a portly rat drinking a bottle of wine with the caption, "The Rat King knows your secrets." Another message, scrawled in what looked like White House paint, read, "It's not how you die. It's WHOU die." "This is a little creepy," Daisy whispered. "Why are you whispering?" "Scared," she whispered. "Has it been 200 yards yet?" "Dunno," I said. "But I hear people up there." I turned around and shone my light back toward the tunnel's entrance, and a couple of middle-aged men behind us waved. "See, it's fine." The creek wasn't really a body of water anymore so much as a slow-moving puddle. I watched a rat scamper across it without ever getting its nose wet. "That was a rat," Daisy said, her voice clenched. "It lives here," I said. "We're the invaders." We kept walking. The only light in the world seemed to be the yellow beams of headlamps and flashlights. It was almost like everyone down there had become beams of light, bouncing along the tunnel in little groups. Ahead of us, I saw headlamps turning to the left, into a square-side tunnel, about 8 feet high. We jumped over the trickling creek, past a sign that read, "A Pickett Engineering Project," and into the concrete side tunnel. You could only see the artwork by the light of headlamps and flashlights, so the paintings and photographs lining the walls seemed to come in and out of focus. To see all of Michael's picture, you had to stand against the opposite wall of the tunnel. It really was an amazing artwork. Prisoner 101 looked as real as anyone, but he was made from pieces of the 100 mugshots Michael had found of men convicted of murder and then exonerated. Even up close, I couldn't tell that Prisoner 101 wasn't real. The rest of the art was cool, too. Big abstract paintings of hard-edged geometric shapes, an assemblage of old wooden chairs precariously stacked to the ceiling, a huge photograph of a kid jumping on a trampoline alone in a vast harvested cornfield, but Michael's was my favorite, and not just because I knew him. After a while, we heard a clamor of voices approach, and the gallery became crowded. Someone had set up a stereo, and music began reverberating through the tunnel. Plastic cups were passed around, and then bottles of wine, and the place got louder and louder, and even though it was freezing down there, I started to feel sweaty, so I asked Daisy if she wanted to go for a walk. "A walk?" "Yeah, just, I don't know, down the tunnel or something." "You want to go for a walk down the tunnel?" "Yeah. I mean, we don't have to." She pointed into the darkness beyond the reach of our headlamps. "You're proposing that we just walk into that void?" "Not for like a mile or anything. Just to see what there is to see." Daisy sighed. "Yeah, okay. Let's go for a walk." It only took a minute for the air to feel crisper. The tunnel ahead of us was pitch black, and it curved in a long, slow arc away from the party until we couldn't see the light from it anymore. We could still hear the music and the people talking over it, but it felt distant, like a party you drive past. "I don't understand how you can be so inhumanly calm down here, 15 feet below downtown Indianapolis, ankle deep in rat shit, but you have a panic attack when you think your finger is infected." "I don't know," I said. "This just isn't scary." "It objectively is," she said. I reached up and clicked off my headlamp. "Turn off your light," I said. "Hell, no. Turn it off. Nothing bad will happen." She clicked off her light, and the world went dark. I felt my eyes trying to adjust, but there was no light to adjust to. Now you can't see the walls, right? Can't see the rats. Spin around a few times and you won't know which way is in and which way is out. This is scary. Now imagine if we couldn't talk, if we couldn't hear each other's breathing. Imagine if we had no sense of touch, so even if we were standing next to each other, we'd never know it. Imagine you're trying to find someone, or even you're trying to find yourself, but you have no senses, no way to know where the walls are, which way is forward or backward, what is water and what is air. You're senseless and shapeless. You feel like you can only describe what you are by identifying what you're not, and you're floating around in a body with no control. You don't get to decide who you like or where you live or when you eat or what you fear. You're just stuck in there, totally alone, in this darkness. That's scary. This, I said, and turned on the flashlight. This is control. This is power. There may be rats and spiders and whatever the hell. But we shine the light on them, not the other way around. We know where the walls are, which way is in and which way is out. This, I said, turning off my light again, is what I feel like when I'm scared. This, I turned the flashlight back on, is a walk in the fucking park. We walked for a while in silence. It's that bad? She asked finally. Sometimes, I said. But then your flashlight starts working again, she said. So far. As we kept walking, through the tunnel, the music behind us growing fainter, Daisy calmed down a bit. I'm thinking of killing off Ayala, she said. Would you take that personally? Nah, I said. I was just starting to like her, though. Did you read the most recent one? The one where they go to Ryloth to deliver power converters? I loved the scene where Ray and Ayala are waiting for that dude in a bar, and they're just talking. I like your action scenes and everything, but the just talking is my favorite. Also, I liked that I got to hook up with a Twi'lek. Or, Ayala did, I guess. Your writing makes me feel like it's real, like I'm really there. Thanks, she said. Now you're making me think maybe I shouldn't kill her. I don't mind if you kill her. Just make her die a hero. Oh, of course. She has to. I was thinking I'd make it some Rogue One style sacrifice for the common good. If that sounds okay? Works for me, I told her. God, is the smell getting worse? She asked. It's not getting better, I acknowledged. It smelled more like rotting garbage and unflushed toilets, and as we passed an offshoot to the tunnel, Daisy said she wanted to turn around, but in the distance ahead of us I could see a pinprick of gray light, and I wanted to see what was at the end. As we walked, the sounds of the city grew slowly louder and the smell improved because we were close to open air. The gray light grew larger until we reached the edge of the tunnel. It was open and unfinished. The tiny trickle of water that was supposed to be diverted from the White River was instead dripping down into it, 2 stories below us. I looked up. It was past 10 o'clock, but I'd never seen the city look so blindingly bright. I could see everything. The green moss on the boulders in the river below. The golden frothy bubbles at the base of the waterfall. The trees in the distance bent over the water like the roof of a chapel. The power lines sagging across the river below us. A great silver grain mill absurdly still in the moonlight. Neon Speedway and Chase Bank signs in the distance. Indianapolis is so flat you can never really look down on it. It's not a town with million-dollar views. But now I had one, in the most unexpected place, the city stretching out below and beyond me, and it took a minute before I remembered that this was nighttime, that this silver-lit landscape is what passed, above ground, for darkness. Daisy surprised me by sitting down, her legs dangling over the concrete edge. I sat down on the other side of the trickle of water, and we looked at the same scene together for a long time. We went out to the meadow that night, talking about college and kissing and religion and art, and I didn't feel like I was watching a movie of our conversation. I was having it. I could listen to her, and I knew she was listening to me. I wonder if they'll ever finish this thing, Daisy said at one point. I kind of hope not, I said. I mean, I'm all for clean water, but I kind of want to be able to come here again in like 10 or 20 years or something. Like, instead of going to my high school reunion, I want to be here. With you, I wanted to say. Yeah, she said. Keep Pogues Run filthy, because the view from the unfinished water treatment tunnel is spectacular. Thanks, Russell Pickett, for your corruption and incompetence. Pogues Run, I mumbled. Wait, where does Pogues Run start? Where is its mouth? The mouth of a river is where it ends, not where it begins. This is the mouth. I watched her realize it. Pogues Run. Holy shit, Holmesy. We're in the jogger's mouth. I stood up. I felt for some reason like Pickett might be right behind us, like he might push us off the edge of his tunnel and into the river below. Now I'm a little freaked out, I said. What are we gonna do? Nothing, I said. Nothing. We're gonna turn around, walk back to the party, hang out with fancy art people, and get home by curfew. I started walking back toward the distant music. I'll tell Davis, so he knows. We let him decide whether to tell Noah. Other than that, we don't say a word. All right, she said, hustling to catch up to me. I mean, is he down here right now? I don't know, I said. I don't think it's for us to know. Right, she said. How could he have been down here this whole time, though? I had a guess, but didn't say anything. God, that smell. She said, her voice trailing off as she said it. You'd think solving mysteries would bring you closure, that closing the loop would comfort and quiet your mind. But it never does. The truth always disappoints. As we circulated around the gallery, looking for Michael, I didn't feel like I'd found the solid nesting doll or anything. Nothing had been fixed, not really. It was like the zoologist said about science, you never really find answers, just new and deeper questions. We finally found Michael leaning against the wall opposite his photograph, talking to two older women. Daisy cut in and took his hand. I hate to break up this party, she said, but this famous artist has a curfew. Michael laughed, and the three of us made our way out of the tunnel, into the Silver Bright parking lot, and then into Michael's minivan. The moment my door slid shut, he said, "That was the best night of my life, thank you for being there, oh my god, that was just the best thing that's ever happened to me, I feel like I might be an artist, like a proper one. That was so amazing. Did you guys have fun?" "Tell us all about it," Daisy said, not exactly answering his question. When I got home, Mom was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking a mug of tea. "What is that smell?" she asked. "Sewage, body odor, mold, a mix of things." "I'm worried, Ozza. I'm worried you're losing your connection to reality." "I'm not," I said. "I'm just tired. Tonight, you're gonna stay up and talk to me." "About what?" "About where you were, what you were doing, who you were doing it with. About your life." So I told her. I told her that Daisy and Michael and I had attended a one-night art show beneath downtown, and that Daisy and I had walked to the end of Pickett's unfinished tunnel, and I told her about going out to the meadow, and I told her about the jogger's mouth, about thinking Pickett was maybe down there, about the stench. "You're going to tell Davis?" she asked. "Yeah." "But not the police?" "No," I said. "If I tell the police, and he is dead down there, Davis and No's house won't even be theirs anymore. It'll be owned by a tuatara." "A tua what?" "A tuatara. It looks like a lizard, but it isn't a lizard. Descended from the dinosaurs. They live for like 150 years, and Pickett's will leaves everything to his pet tuatara. The house, the business, everything." "The madness of wealth," my mother mumbled. "Sometimes you think you're spending money, but all along the money's spending you." She glanced down at her cup of tea, and then back up to me. "But only if you worship it. You serve whatever you worship. So we gotta be careful what we worship," I said. She smiled, then shooed me off to the shower. As I stood underneath the water, I wondered what I'd worship as I got older, and how that would end up bending the arc of my life this way or that. I was still at the beginning. I could still be anybody. 23. I woke up the next morning, a Saturday, feeling truly rested, frozen rain plinking against my bedroom window. Indianapolis winters rarely feature the sort of beautiful snow that you can ski and sled in. Our usual winter precipitation is a conglomeration called wintry mix, involving ice pellets, frozen rain, and wind. It wasn't even that cold, maybe 35, but the wind was howling outside. I got up, dressed, ate some cereal, took a pill, and watched a bit of TV with Mom. I spent the morning procrastinating. I'd pull out my phone, start to text him, and then put it away. Then pull it out again, but no. Not yet. It never seemed like the right time. But of course, it never is the right time. I remember after my dad died, for a while, it was both true and not true in my mind. For weeks, really, I could conjure him into being. I'd imagine him walking in, soaked in sweat, having finished mowing the lawn, and he'd try to hug me but I'd squirm out from his arms because even then sweat freaked me out. Or I'd be in my room, lying on my stomach, reading a book, and I'd look over at the closed door and imagine him opening it, and then he would be in the room with me, and I'd be looking up at him as he knelt down to kiss the top of my head. And then it became harder to summon him, to smell his smell, to feel him lifting me up. My father died suddenly, but also across the years. He was still dying, really, which meant I guess that he was still living, too. People always talk like there's a bright line between imagination and memory, but there isn't, at least not for me. I remember what I've imagined and imagine what I remember. I finally texted Davis just after noon. "We need to talk. Can you come over to my house today?" He replied, "Nobody's here to look after Noah. Can you come over here?" "I need to talk to you alone," I wrote. I wanted Davis to have the choice whether or not to tell his brother. "I can be there at 5:30. Thanks. See you then." The day moved agonizingly slowly. I tried reading, texting Daisy, and watching TV, but nothing would make the time speed up. I wasn't sure whether life would be better frozen in this moment, or on the other side of the moment that was coming. By 4:45, I was reading in the living room while Mom paid bills. "Davis is coming over in a little bit," I told her. "Okay. I've got a couple errands to run." You need anything at the grocery store? I shook my head. You feeling anxious? Is there any way we can make a deal where I tell you when I have a mental health concern instead of you asking? It's impossible for me not to worry, baby. I know, but it's also impossible not to feel the weight of that worry like a boulder on my chest. I'll try. Thanks, Mom. I love you. I love you, too. So much. I scrolled through my endless TV options, none of them particularly compelling, until I heard Davis's knock, soft and unsteady, on the door. Hey, I said, and hugged him. Hey, he said. I motioned to the couch for him to sit down. How've you been? Listen, I said. Davis, your dad. I know where the jogger's mouth is. It's the mouth of Pogue's Run, where the company had that unfinished project. He winced, then nodded. You're sure? Pretty sure, I said. I think he might be down there. Daisy and I were there last night, and... Did you see him? I shook my head. No. But the run's mouth, the jogger's mouth. It makes sense. It's just a note from his phone, though. You think he's just been down there this whole time? Hiding in a sewer? Maybe, I said. But... Well, I don't know. But... I don't want to worry you, but there was a bad smell. A really bad smell down there. That could have been anything, he said. But I could see the fear on his face. I know, yeah, totally, it could be anything. I never thought. I never let myself think, and then his voice caught. The cry that finally came out of him felt like the sky ripping open. He sort of fell into me, and I held him on the couch. Felt his rib cage heave. It wasn't only Noah who missed his father. Oh God, he's dead, isn't he? You don't know that, I said. But he kind of did. There was a reason there had been no trail and no communication. He'd been gone all along. He lay down and I lay down with him, the two of us barely fitting on the musty couch. He kept saying, "What do I do? What do I do?" his head on my shoulder. I wondered whether it was a mistake to tell him. What do I do? He asked it again and again, pleading. You keep going, I told him. You've got 7 years. No matter what actually happened, he'll be legally alive for 7 years, and you'll have the house and everything. That's a long time to build a new life, Davis. 7 years ago, you and I hadn't even met, you know? We've got nobody now, he mumbled. I wished I could tell him that he had me, that he could count on me, but he couldn't. You have your brother, I said. That made him split open again, and we cuddled together for a long time, until Mom came home with the groceries. Davis and I both jumped to a seating position, even though we hadn't been doing anything. Sorry to interrupt, Mom said. I was just headed out, Davis said. You don't have to, Mom and I said simultaneously. I kinda do, he said. He leaned over and hugged me with one arm. Thank you, he whispered, although I wasn't sure I'd done him any favors. Davis stopped at the doorway for a second, looked back at Mom and me in what must have seemed to him like domestic bliss. I thought he might say something, but he just waved, shyly and awkwardly, and disappeared out the front door. It was a quiet night in the Holmes household. Could have been any night, really. I worked on a paper about the Civil War for history class. Outside, the day, which had never been particularly bright, dissolved into darkness. I told Mom I was going to sleep, changed into pajamas, brushed my teeth, changed the band-aid over the scab on my fingertip, crawled into bed, and texted Davis. Hi. When he didn't reply, I wrote Daisy. Talked to Davis. Her. How'd it go? Me. Not great. Her. Want me to come over? Me. Yeah. Her. On my way. An hour later, Daisy and I were lying next to each other on my bed, computers on our stomachs. I was reading the new Ayala story. Every time I giggled at something, she'd say, "What's funny?" And I'd tell her. After I finished it, we just lay there, in bed together, staring up at the ceiling. Well, Daisy said after a while, it all worked out in the end. How's that? Our heroes got rich and nobody got hurt. Everyone got hurt, I pointed out. What I mean is that no one got injured. I lacerated my liver. Oh, right. I forgot about that. At least no one died. Harold died. And possibly Pickett. Holmesy, I am trying to have a happy ending here. Stop screwing it up for me. I'm so Ayala, I answered. So Ayala. The problem with happy endings, I said, is that they're either not really happy, or not really endings, you know? In real life, some things get better and some things get worse. And then eventually you die. Daisy laughed. As always, Ozza, and then eventually you die. Holmes is here to remind you of how the story really ends, with the extinction of our species. I laughed. Well, that is the only real ending, though. No, it's not, Holmesy. You pick your endings, and your beginnings. You get to pick the frame, you know? Maybe you don't choose what's in the picture, but you decide on the frame. Davis never wrote me back, not even after I texted him a few days later. But he did update his blog. And, like the baseless fabric of this vision, the cloud-capped towers, the gorgeous palaces, the solemn temples, the great globe itself, yea, all which it inherit, shall dissolve, and, like this insubstantial pageant faded, leave not a rack behind. William Shakespeare. I get that nothing lasts. But why do I have to miss everybody so much? 24. A month later, just after Christmas vacation ended, I got up early and poured a couple bowls of cereal for Mom and me. I was eating in front of the TV when she walked in, still wearing pajamas, flustered. Late, she said. Hit snooze too many times. I made you breakfast, I told her, and when she joined me on the couch, she said, Cheerios aren't something you make. I laughed as she took a few bites, then ran off to get dressed. Always a flurry of movement, my mother. When I turned back to the TV, a red breaking news band was scrolling across the bottom of the screen. I saw a reporter standing in front of the gates of the Pickett compound. I fumbled for the remote and unmuted the TV. Our sources indicate that while Pickett has not been positively identified, authorities believe the body found in an offshoot of the Pogues Run tunnel is indeed that of billionaire construction magnate Russell Davis Pickett Sr. One source close to the investigation told Eyewitness News that Pickett likely died of exposure within, quote, a few days of his disappearance, and while we have no official confirmation, several sources tell us that Pickett's body was discovered by police after an anonymous tip. I texted Davis immediately. Just saw the news. I'm so sorry, Davis. I know I've said that to you a lot, but I am. I'm just so sorry. He didn't reply right away, so I added, I want you to know it wasn't Daisy or me who tipped off the cops. We never said anything to anyone. Now I saw the of his typing. I know. It was us. Noah and I decided together. Mom came in, putting earrings in while slipping on her shoes. She must have overheard the last bit of the story, because she said, Ozza, you should reach out to Davis. This is going to be a very hard day for him. I was just texting him, I said. They were the ones who told the cops where to look. Can you imagine, that whole estate is going to a lizard? They could have waited 7 years, at least, before Pickett was declared dead. 7 more years of that house. 7 more years of getting anything they wanted. But they decided to let it go to a Tuatara. I guess they couldn't leave their dad down there, I said. Maybe I shouldn't have told him about the jogger's mouth. This was, after all, my fault. An icy dread passed over me. I'd forced them to choose between abandoning their father and abandoning their lives. Be kind to yourself, Mom said. Obviously knowing the truth mattered more to him than the house, and it's not like he'll be thrown out onto the streets, Ozza. I tried to listen to her, but the undeniable feeling had sprung up in me. For a moment I tried to resist, but only a moment. I slipped off the band-aid and dug my nail into the callus of my finger, opening up a cut where the previous one had finally healed. As I washed and rebandaged it in the bathroom, I stared at myself. I would always be like this, always have this within me. There was no beating it. I would never slay the dragon, because the dragon was also me. Myself and the disease were knotted together for life. I was thinking about Davis's journal, of that Frost quote, in 3 words I can sum up everything I've learned about life, it goes on. And you go on, too, when the current is with you and when it isn't. Or at least that's what I whispered wordlessly to myself. Before I left the bathroom, I texted him again. Can we hang out sometime? I saw the appear, but he never replied. We should get going, Mom said. I opened the bathroom door, pulled a jacket and a knit hat from the coat rack, and entered our frigid garage. I shimmied my fingertips under the garage door, lifted it up, and sat down in the passenger seat while Mom finished making her morning coffee. I kept looking at my phone, waiting for his reply. I was cold but sweating, the sweat soaking into my ski hat. I thought of Davis, hearing his own name on the news again. You go on, I told myself, and tried through the ether to say it to him, too. Over the next few months, I kept going. I got better without ever quite getting well. Daisy and I started a mental health alliance and a fan fiction workshop so that we could list some proper extracurriculars on next year's college applications, even though we were the only 2 members of both clubs. We hung out most nights, at her apartment or at Applebee's or at my house, sometimes with Michael but usually not. Usually it was just the 2 of us, watching movies or doing homework or just talking. It was so easy to go out into the meadow with her. I missed Davis, of course. The first few days, I kept checking my phone, waiting for him to reply, but slowly I understood that we were going to be part of each other's past. I still missed him, though. I missed my dad, too. And Harold. I missed everybody. To be alive is to be missing. And then one night in April, Daisy and I were over at my house, watching the one-night-only reunion of our favorite band, who were performing at some third-tier music awards show. They just brilliantly lip-synced their way through "It's Gotta Be You" when someone knocked. It was almost 11 o'clock, too late for visitors, and I felt a shiver of nerves as I opened the door. It was Davis, wearing a plaid button-down and skinny jeans. He was holding a huge box. Hi, I said. "This is for you," he told me, and handed me the box, which wasn't as heavy as I expected. I carried it inside and placed it on our dining room table, and when I turned back, he was already walking away. "Wait," I said. "Come here." I reached my hand out for his. He took it, and we walked together into my backyard. The river was swollen, and you could hear it churning down there in the darkness somewhere. The air felt warm on the skin of my forearms as I lay down on the ground beneath the big ash tree in our backyard. He lay down next to me, and I showed him what the sky looked like from my house, all split up by the branches that were just beginning to sprout leaves. He told me that he and Noah were moving to Colorado, where Noah had gotten into some boarding school for troubled kids. Davis would finish high school out there, at a public school. They'd rented a house. "It's smaller than our current place," he said. "But on the other hand, no tuatara." He asked me how I was doing, and I told him that I felt okay much of the time. 4 weeks between visits to Dr. Singh now. "So when are you leaving?" I asked him. "Tomorrow," he said, and that killed the conversation for a while. "Okay, so," I said at last, "what am I looking at?" He laughed a little. "Well, you've got Jupiter up there, of course. Very bright tonight. And there's Arcturus." He squirmed a bit to turn around and pointed toward another part of the sky. "And there's the Big Dipper, and if you follow the line of those two stars, right there, that's Polaris, the North Star." "Why'd you tell the cops to look down there?" I asked. It was eating Noah up, not knowing. I realized. I guess I realized I had to be a big brother, you know? That's my full-time occupation now. That's who I am. And he needed to know why his father wasn't in touch with him more than he needed all the money, so that's what we did. I reached down and squeezed his hand. "You're a good brother." He nodded. I could see in the gray light that he was crying a little. "Thanks," he said. "I kind of just want to stay here in this particular instant for a really long time." "Yeah," I said. We settled into a silence, and I felt the sky's bigness above me, the unimaginable vastness of it all, looking at Polaris and realizing the light I was seeing was 425 years old, and then looking at Jupiter, less than a light hour from us. In the moonless darkness, we were just witnesses to light, and I felt a sliver of what must have driven Davis to astronomy. There was a kind of relief in having your own smallness laid bare before you, and I realized something Davis must have already known. Spirals grow infinitely small the farther you follow them inward, but they also grow infinitely large the farther you follow them out. And I knew I would remember that feeling, underneath the split-up sky, back before the machinery of fate ground us into one thing or another, back when we could still be everything. I thought, lying there, that I might love him for the rest of my life. We did love each other, maybe we never said it, and maybe love was never something we were in, but it was something I felt. I loved him, and I thought, maybe I will never see him again, and I'll be stuck missing him, and isn't that so terrible? But it turns out not to be terrible, because I know the secret that the me lying beneath that sky could not imagine. I know that girl would go on, that she would grow up, have children and love them, that despite loving them she would get too sick to care for them, be hospitalized, get better, and then get sick again. I know a shrink would say, "Write it down, how you got here." So you would, and in writing it down you realize, love is not a tragedy or a failure, but a gift. You remember your first love because they show you, prove to you, that you can love and be loved, that nothing in this world is deserved except for love, that love is both how you become a person, and why. But underneath those skies, your hand, no, my hand, no, our hand, in his, you don't know yet. You don't know that the spiral painting is in that box on your dining room table, with a post-it note stuck to the back of the frame. Stole this from a lizard for you. D. You can't know yet how that painting will follow you from one apartment to another and then eventually to a house, or how decades later, you'll be so proud that Daisy continues to be your best friend, that growing into different lives only makes you more fiercely loyal to each other. You don't know that you'd go to college, find a job, make a life, see it unbuilt and rebuilt. I, a singular proper noun, would go on, if always in a conditional tense. But you don't know any of that yet. We squeeze his hand. He squeezes back. You stare up at the same sky together, and after a while he says, I have to go, and you say, goodbye, and he says, goodbye, Ozza, and no one ever says goodbye unless they want to see you again.